Hey, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Tim and Jim Show. I'm Tim Sohn with Sohn Social Media Solutions here, hanging out in the forest by the river. And I'm so excited to be here with Jim and our amazing guest today. So, Jim, take it away, my friend.
Hey, great to see you, Tim, and really excited. I'm Jim Fuse, Fusion Marketing here in Atlanta, Georgia, sitting in the basement waiting for the rain to go away. And supposedly we're going to get some really nice weather over the next few days, maybe even do a fire pit over the weekend. So keeping our fingers crossed. It's actually getting
Awesome.
cool enough to do it because it is fall, y'all, as we say in the South. And really excited to have our guest here, Jen, and I hope I don't butcher this, Zahari from
Perfect. Yes.
Wisconsin. And Jen, you've got quite a diverse background, but you were driven to want to help others. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and we're excited to get started from what you're going to teach us today.
Yes, and thank you guys for having me on today. I'm excited to be here. So I help support people from a number of different aspects and perspectives. The thing that I'm most in tune to and most drawn to is people struggling with the anxiousness, struggling with limiting beliefs, struggling with the overall of being okay with being yourself. Really stepping into who we are, loving ourselves, and allowing the anxious moments to dissipate. So I define myself as an anxiety coach, but really, as I look to the people that I work with, I'm really a mentor and a coach to them in a lot of different capacities. I also, within my practice, I have a huge belief of energy work and cellular emotional healing. Oftentimes, if our physiology is off, it can sparking anxious moments and spark having a hard time healing those limiting beliefs. And when we can heal the energy and get our energy on balance, we can really propel ourselves forward with healing everything else forward as well.
Wow. I like that idea. Because, it seems like, and I don't know if it's because of all the noise in our society and all the electronic devices. I've seen it. I've seen it, we talked kind of beforehand, some people I know, anxiety seems to like it has grown, or maybe it's been there. We just never talked about it before. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a really good one. And my philosophy is a couple fold. First and foremost, I think sometimes we don't get to know ourselves. Sometimes it's that simple step of taking a step back and saying, who am I? And what do I want? And what things, I call them rocks. When I use the analogy, I say, what rocks did you put in your proverbial backpack that you've been carrying around? Maybe it's that rock from that person who said your voice doesn't matter, and you decided to wear it. You decided to own it. Maybe it's that rock that says you're an introvert and whatever you choose to define that as. And maybe you define that as bad when it's not. It's just part of who you are and part of that amazingness. We put these labels and these rocks on things and we put them in our backpack and we never look at them to say, is this really me? Is this thing that I heard people say about me and their perspectives and the gifts that they gave me, is that something that I want to own? Or is it something that I want to take a look and say, yeah, that's not really me. So thank you. I heard you. You can keep that gift for yourself. That's not who I am. And if we can take that step back and let go of those gifts, let go of those limitations that were bestowed on us for one way or another, that were never ours, we can really get to the balance and the belief to say, here's who I really am, and start gaining strength in the belief of, again, that self-love of who you are.
I love that, Jen. And I think a lot of us who haven't really thought about that much before the pandemic have, because we've had so much time, depending on our situation, to reflect more on our inner selves and, just like how we're living our lives, right?
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, again, coming back to the original question, when we think about anxiety, I believe that's just one piece is the getting to know yourself. It's also what we do in our everyday to day. It's for me knowing what are the ways that we cope? What are the ways that we rebalance ourselves? What are the ways that when we're going through life and we have the work stress and the family stress and the external stressors and all the people stressors, how do we take that step back to regroup? Is that meditation for some? Is it gardening for others? You know, I'm a big proponent of meditation, but some people just can't get there, and that's okay. And find other ways. Maybe for some people it's coloring or painting or gardening, or find an outlet, a sports. You know, I love fitness and I love kickboxing and I love just running. And sometimes I have to take it the other spectrum. And instead of going in peace and meditation and regrouping that way, I just have to run it out or drop and give myself 20 because I have to get out of my head. And having those tips to say, I'm in an anxious moment, I'm getting inside my head. What strategies do I have in place? And just running through that list to get out of it.
For sure. And we should thank everyone who's tuning in. Thank you so much for being here. Dorothy is here. Hey, Dorothy.
Hi, Dorothy.
Elise is here from South Africa. Hi, Elise. Thank you so much for being here. Alex is here. He says his home state is Wisconsin.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for joining.
So let us know, guys, where you're tuning in from around the world. We would love to know. And today we're going to be talking all about mental health. So Jen, tell us a little bit about what brought you to the field of mental and emotional wellness anyway. Tell us more about your journey.
Yeah, really good question. So of course, I think that we're drawn to the things that we do from our own life experiences, oftentimes. For me, I was the girl with that story who from a very young age received the comments of that my voice didn't matter. I was the one who received the comments of I was an embarrassment, that nobody wanted to hear from me. And I allowed that story from a very young age to own me. And I built on it. And I built that story of anxiety and that story of that my voice didn't matter for decades. And it held me back in a lot of ways. It held me back from being me, just being my authentic voice. I also am a very strong soul and grew up in a grit it out, suck it up, move on philosophy of life. And there's no way anyone was stopping me, no matter how much anxiousness it brought me inside. And so I was living this dichotomy of showing the strength and showing all the things and building the career. But inside, I was breaking. And I had so many moments inside that I would walk away from sales meetings or board meetings, or I was in the director level. And I can't tell you how many times I walked out just feeling like I was going to throw up because I was so anxious inside. And it wasn't a way to live because I never dealt with it. I just thought it was normal. I thought it was, well, this is just, and I had people say, well, that everybody goes through that. You just deal with it.
Right.
And in my mid 30s, I had cancer. And I went really downhill. I spiraled for a while, and the anxiousness got worse. I got depressive states in a really major way. And I started having some suicidal ideations, which I would have told you that I would never be a person that would give up on myself. Yeah. And by the grace, my son was my shining light, because there's no way I was going to leave this planet with him on it without a mom. And I dove into learning. I'm a believer of understanding my brain, how we work, how we tick, what we think, and how to heal myself. And I started healing. I'm reading the comment. Yes, I love it. Chris, yes. Can't tell you how many times I've done a lot of push-ups throughout the day. So I started healing. I started building myself, growing myself, getting outside of myself. And throughout that time, I was in staffing, and I literally have worked with thousands of people. So not only watching my own journey, but seeing and listening and hearing to other people, it became very clear to me how many people experience the same things I was experiencing, and we're walking the same life I was walking, because I think that a lot of us had it that we can't talk about it, or it makes us small for some reason, or it makes us somehow unable to do things, which is complete, pardon my language, bullshit, pardon my language, but it's just true. It doesn't mean anything other than you're experiencing a moment in life. So I knew in my healing journey when I was on the other side, and I think we all have anxious moments, but I'm so grateful to say now that I live without daily anxiety. I'm going to get off this show and there won't be any amount of second guessing. And I can't tell you how amazing and beautiful that feels on the other side of knowing where I was 15 years ago. And I'm out to cause that for more people. I want people to be able to, I want to support people in a way that they can walk through life knowing that they can live in a way that they're not going to second guess themselves around every corner. And they're not going to wonder, what are people going to think if I do this? And they're going to have the belief that if they're just being themselves, that's perfect. And that's exactly the way they should be, is being themselves and growing in the ways that they want. And if someone says they should do something or labels them something, they can honestly take that step back and say, is that really for me? Or is that not for me? And then decide for themselves.
Jen, we're both cancer survivors. Talk a little bit in terms of like when you got your diagnosis and just kind of like how has that aspect of your life influenced your journey?
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind at all. I can tell you that cancer changed my whole life. I've always been a fitness enthusiast. I always had it that I was big into health. I mean, I've maintained a 160-pound weight loss for over 2 decades.
Wow.
Yeah. And that moment changed me from the emotional capacity of things. I didn't really get the importance of the emotional side of health.
Yeah.
And the importance of actually just being comfortable being yourself. I like to say that I valued life prior to cancer, but I can tell you I value it even more now. I mean, I
Sure.
value every minute that I have and see the possibilities in ourselves differently than we did before. And I like to say
Yeah.
that for me at least, I value making sure that I'm doing everything I actually want to do in life and not holding back from well, I'll get there someday. No, we're going to do it now. And there's no
Yeah.
waiting it. So the values are different is really the main one.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Jim, do you want to take the next question?
Sure. So, how do you recommend that people keep their mental health in check? Because it seems like there's so many things going on. I mean, how do we even get started?
Yeah. For me, it comes down to a comment that I made early on, and that's first getting to know yourself. What is your balance? Do you know when you're in balance? Do you know what balance feels like for you? I tend to be a little bit of an edgy person. I'm always going, I'm always doing, I'm often, what's next? What's next? So I know that that's my baseline. And if you know what your baseline is, I really believe then when something throws you off balance, you can quicker pick it up. I know really quickly, even with my baseline, I know really quickly when something throws me off kilter. And then next step is have something in place. What is your tell to say, oh, I caught it. I know that I'm having an anxious moment. What am I going to do? What are my steps? Is it going to be, this is a moment I'm going to take 10 minutes and sit in peace? Is this a moment that I'm going to drop and give myself 20 push-ups? Is this a moment I'm going to go and walk out in the grass to get balance? I use the word balance loosely because I think balance is relative by person. And I think that there's some parts of life that you truly don't have balance at times often, especially when it comes to family and work and kids. And we have a lot going on. Of course, I'm not saying don't keep balance. Of course, keep self-care and of course, keep point on yourself. And there are times that it's hard to keep that balance. I also am a firm believer of the basics and keeping the basics of life with what we eat, our physical activity, our basics of emotional self-care, how we're talking to ourselves, the people that we're surrounding ourselves. I really have it that there's no bad people. I think that sometimes two people are just not right for each other. And that doesn't make one more right or one more wrong. It just means those personality styles don't make a match. Also, as it relates to mental health check, how is your job impacting you? Again, I was in the staffing world for 15 years. And I can tell you across industries, there were certain industries that same industry, completely different cultures. And one person could do phenomenal at one company of the same industry and do horrible at the other company because they had completely different cultures. So find that company that works best for you and that you're a fit for, and vice versa. And if your work is impacting your mental health, get to the root of it and find out if it's something you can work on and that you can change and you can strengthen, or is it something that maybe the company's not right for you? And then the other thing I'll add on keeping your mental health in check is get to the root of what's there that you never dealt with. It comes back to the rocks that I mentioned earlier, right? Like the rocks that we keep in our proverbial sack of all the things that we were told in life. Have you dealt with those? You know, I did a lot of work. I almost said I had to. I chose to do a lot of work on letting the stories of that my voice didn't matter. I changed that story. And I really got flat on letting the gifts that everyone gave me of what they told me, I let those gifts go and I redefined it for myself. And I think oftentimes we are holding on to what other people told us to be or what other people said we were. Or when we're kids, we don't know how to interpret things. And is the way that we interpreted it when we were 4 years old the same way that we want to own today?
Right. Thank you for that, Jen. We're going to take a brief break for a message from our sponsor, StreamYard, which we use to produce this show and many other shows every week. So we'll be right back in 15 seconds.
Awesome.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Tim and Jim Show. We're here with Jen Zahari talking all about mental health. We're so grateful to have you here, Jen.
So grateful to be here. Thank you.
So Jen, if someone is struggling with anxiety or depression, what do you recommend? What are some starting steps that they can take?
Yeah. Number one, first and foremost, is get someone that can help. I like to recommend not family, not friends, because sometimes those opinions are biased. Not in a bad way. They're there to love on you and they're there to take care of you and they're there to tell you that everything's going to be okay. And sometimes that opinion that's not family and friends can give you a different perspective. First and foremost, if you're on that cusp, use the hotline, use the suicide hotline. I'm a big proponent of there's always a way out of it. And sometimes you just need someone to reach out that hand and pull you outside of the tornado. And sometimes that can be hard. So there's always that. I'm a huge believer of mentors. I can tell you, even as I've been leading people for over 20 years. I've been coaching people for 2.5 years. I still have 2 coaches myself. I mean, I think as people, to always have someone to help us mentor and help us coach keeps us on our blind sides. It helps say, hey, keep an eye on what's going on over here because it might get you if you don't watch out for it. Again, coming back to that balance, I'm a believer of learning. And I think that sometimes just getting outside of your own way and delving into the learning aspect of why this is happening or what you can do often empowers somebody. And often if someone takes advantage of looking for themselves of what their answer is, they're going to take more ownership. And of course, I say this loosely when I say, of course, the basics, the practicing gratitude, being present in the moment, journaling. I'm a believer of journaling things out because when we get frustrations out of us, we can often move on from it. I'm also a believer of leaving the labels off and not making anything wrong or bad in any of it. I'm a big believer of every single feeling is right in its own right. And whether you're feeling angry or sad or whatever it is, allow those feelings to come out and find a healthy way to process it.
Yeah.
And do what's right for you. For me, the natural approach was always the right answer. For me, any kind of medication, especially on the back end of cancer, I didn't want anything other than natural things in my body. And for other people, sometimes that chemistry's off. And sometimes you got to get the chemical aspect right so that then you can take the actions to make movement and get healthy.
Yeah, and I think a big a big problem is that people are afraid to, whether it's, get help or go to therapy because they feel like it labels them, it makes them weak. I mean, I'm not afraid to admit, I went through a divorce over 10 years ago, and I went to a therapist, and I'm glad I did it. It really helped me, figure out where some of those rocks like you talked about that were in my backpack, and that's helped me. Now I'm in a very healthy, relationship and marriage. And I like what you said too earlier about the people that you surround yourself with, because it's, you're right. There are going to be people. It doesn't mean that you don't have to like them. It's like we're just not, meant to be. And it's funny sometimes when you consider there's billions of people in the world,
Yeah.
and yet we'll let one person in that world really mess with our mind. I've
Right.
just always found that fascinating.
I agree with that completely, Jim. Yeah. And it's taken a look. I really believe, and I didn't always believe this one. It's really taken a look inside to say, why is this person triggering me so much? What is it about this that's triggering me? I can tell you for me, it was that little girl voice. It was that little girl voice saying, see, there's another person that says your voice doesn't matter. There's another person that says you're an embarrassment. And it had nothing to do with them. It was all over here with me and resolving that inner voice. And sometimes it's taken a look that way. And then often when we resolve that and let that go from our past, our relationships are so much healthier.
Mm. Jim, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah. So, Jen, what are some of the factors that impact our mental health, and what can we do, I guess, maybe to try to maybe shape those or control them?
Yeah. I think that we talked about some of these already. One that I really don't want to step over because I think it's important and I think it sometimes gets missed is the overall chemistry of who we are, and the chemistry of the things that we're putting into our body. I can tell you for me, even there are some seemingly healthy foods that will trigger anxiousness in me.
Mm.
And even something as simple as watching your food intake and seeing how it impacts you physiologically can be telling to say, oh, maybe I'll just change this. Caffeine's a big one for people. Alcohol is a big one for people. I can tell you for me, caffeine, if I have too much, it will make me jittery. It'll give me anxious moments. I know that I'm more prone to things. So that's a big one. Of course, exercise and movement. If we're not getting enough of it and we're ruminating in our thoughts, that can be impactful. Some that I've already mentioned, the job that we're in, how is it helping us? What responsibilities are we taking on? The people that we're surrounding ourselves with. Again, I don't want to repeat myself, but I really have it that the things that we say to ourselves are so important as it relates to mental health. How we're talking to ourselves, what we're saying. Our brains are naturally built to look for problems. Our brains are naturally built to keep us safe. So literally our brains are naturally built to give us negative because it's naturally wired that way. And it's shaping ourselves in a way to actually look for the positives and actually look for the goods and actually redefining how we talk to ourselves so that our brain's working, yay, it's working the right way, but it's shifting it so that those things that are coming up as negative, we can redefine it to say, okay, how is this serving me? What is this doing for me? But if we're not minding those thoughts, we can really quickly go down what I call a shitstorm tornado of just negative one over another and stack them. And that's not healthy for any of us. I think those are all the big ones. I feel like I've missed one. And when it shows up, I'll remember.
Well, I know for me, I think those are all excellent points. A big thing, right? Because we've been in this world of the pandemic for quite a while. Is I think too many people get focused on the news. Even what we went through with the election, and something that my wife and I did, I think that was very healthy for us is we just turned it off.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't listen to it, if you don't let yourself get wrapped up into it, because if you sit there and watch the news all day and listen to the latest reports on what's going on with COVID, this and that, first of all, it's out of your control.
Right.
The only thing we can do is control ourselves. And so, whether in my case, we got vaccinated, we, practice social distancing when appropriate, things of that. That's all I can do. I can't make you do anything. I can't make Tim do anything. That's your choice.
Right.
But then that goes back to the people that we have in our life. If you're going to be a jerk, well, then I'll just not have you around until you want to stop, being a jerk. And I think, because and you see it on, social media, right? Consuming too much social media, in a sense, even can be bad for you, because the way the algorithm, is putting the stuff that you keep clicking on. So if you keep clicking on, things that are bad, it says, oh, this is the sort of stuff we want to feed this person. And I think, so for me, I think that's a big thing from a mental health perspective is, stop letting, technology control you, even though we're here live streaming.
Yeah. Jim, that's a really important, great point about the controllables and uncontrollables. And that can span across all areas of our life of what can we control and what can't we control, and doing what we can to minimize what we can't control of impacting our lives, and the things that we can control within the controllables, doing what we can there as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. Also, in terms of the social media consumption, I'm much more conscious. I spend a lot more time on LinkedIn than I still spend some time on Facebook, but LinkedIn, at least the people that I interact with on LinkedIn tend to be much more supportive and uplifting, and just the tone of the platform has a much more positive tone, at least where I'm hanging out there. Yeah. So.
Oh no, I think it's an excellent point, Tim. I mean, even, you'll have some people that bash Twitter, and I will tell you, if you create a Twitter list and you keep focused on that list, and maybe it's your connections and the people you want to learn about, I don't see the garbage that all these other people complain about. It's right. It's like you get what you choose to put out there, and vice versa. But I think LinkedIn is a good place, especially for what we're doing. But you're still going to have a few people out there, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If there are people like that, right? Just mute them, or unfollow them, and they're not doing anything for you probably. So why put yourself through that? I mean, what do you think, Jen?
Yeah, yes to all of that. And I also, dialing it all back, it comes so much to self-care and self-love. When I tend to find, or at least I've found in my history of when I really just shifted that story and really just got locked solid in who I am and comfortable in my own skin, the comparison, it doesn't show up so much. And it's easier to say, hey, cool, they got their thing, I got my thing. And we're different, and that's okay. And yeah, I'm not a big scroller on social media anyway. But I definitely, it can suck people in, and people can quickly say they're doing this and they're doing this and they're doing this, and pull themselves down and knock themselves down in the process. So it's self-love. Yeah.
Love that. Thank you so much for being here today, Jen. Tell people, how can they connect with you? Do you have any upcoming projects or things going on that you want to share?
Yes, thank you for asking. So I have, and I'm so excited about it, you guys. This has been about 5.5 years coming. I've always wanted to put something in market to help keep the conversation going around mental and emotional health, and changed the book several times along the way. Ended up making it into a fiction format. It comes out in 6 weeks. The name of the book is it's called Created No Way Out. And it is about a woman who's ready to end her life with suicide.
Wow.
And it walks through the story of her life currently versus all the steps of how she got to that point in life. And my goal behind it is not only bring the lessons behind what we can learn between what we call into ourselves and what we do to ourselves, but also, again, the people we surround ourselves with, the things that we do. So I'm really hoping that brings a lot of people solace and lessons of what we can do as individuals within our own mental health conversation, but also bringing more conversation around mental and emotional health. Because the fact is, I really have it that there is still a little bit of a stigma behind it. I can tell you, I was in a director role when I shared some of what I had going on, and I got looked at differently. I got treated differently, and I got different responsibilities, it had no bearing on my ability to do the job. Thank you, Dorothy. Dorothy was one of my beta readers.
Awesome.
So thank you, Dorothy. But anyway, so more to come on the book. It'll be out in 6 weeks or less. So I'm really excited about that. And guys, continuing to dive in. I love supporting people, mentoring people, whether it comes to body image and just getting really comfortable in your own skin, anxiety. And I do a lot of energy work and helping people keep their energy in balance so that we can then keep our emotional wellness in balance, because it's really all connected.
Right.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. You have so many exciting things going on. Congratulations, Jen.
Thank you very much for that. And thanks again for having me, guys. And for everyone who has joined us, I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Jim, do you want to tell everybody who our guest is for next week?
Yeah, next week we're excited to have Mike Gingrich join us. Mike is an amazing digital marketer, and got to see him in person a couple times at Social Media Week Lima. He does a show with Jessica Phillips every week that they've been doing for quite a while. So it'll be nice to get Mike on and get some of his perspective on things.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the Tim and Jim Show. Bye.
Thank you both. Have a good day.
You too.